Despite its appeal and its at least perceived glamorous craft, photography actually does bring with it a number of challenges, and these challenges affect everybody, whether you're someone who's just starting photography, to if you're someone who's been doing it for decades, or if you're someone who just wants to do photography for a hobby, or if you're someone who does it for a living. Everybody faces a number of challenges as a photographer, and today I've broken down 7 harsh truths about photography that every photographer will face. Let's get into this. We start with the first one, is that camera gear alone won't make you a better photographer. And this is probably one of the biggest misconceptions in photography, and I kind of understand why. It's easy to look at other esteemed photographers. If you're someone who's maybe in the early years of your photography, you look at these photographers who are well esteemed, and more often than not they're using a very expensive camera, a very fancy camera, newest model possible, and they're taking brilliant photos. And you might mistake this, think to yourself, well, the reason these guys are taking such good photos is because they have such a great camera. But that is not true at all. Your camera has absolutely nothing to do with your quality of your work. The quality of your work is based upon your ability to work out great composition, lighting and exposure. Now, while I do admit certain newer brands of camera might have better functionality and maybe more user-friendly, as in you can maybe change certain parameters of it, I will admit that, but for the vast majority of it, your camera does not affect the body or the quality of your work. That's down to you as an individual to work that for yourself. Number 2 is your way is not necessarily the best way. Now, this is where it's not necessarily anything personal. It's more the fact of what we need to understand is photography is a very subjective kind of craft. We each tailor our own methods and our own ideas to what suits us. So like I tailor my own kind of like methods and how I operate to the way that I want to work and the photos that I want to make. But the photos that I want to make is not necessarily what every other photographer wants to do. You know, the person who does gritty kind of dark night photography isn't going to get along or isn't going to really bond with the person who likes to get up early in the morning to go climb a Munro in Scotland and get awesome drone photography. And in both those scenarios, both of those photographers have tailored their methods to what suits them. They've tailored it to the kind of photos they want to make. And neither of them is necessarily wrong, it's just how they operate. So I think it's just about being respectful and mindful that, yes, we all have our own way and we've found the way that works for us. We might have evidence that works for us, but it's just to be respectful that that wouldn't necessarily work for everybody else. So it's just to be a bit mindful of everyone. Number 3 is rejection is part of the game, and this can be a bit of a sore one to take because I don't think it's too much to say that as photographers we take a lot of pride in what we do and we do really enjoy what it is we make, and when we put it out there I don't think it's too egotistical or narcissistic to suggest that you do hope your peers and other photographers enjoy it. But the fact of the matter is not everybody is going to like your portfolio and like your photos. And that's a hard one to take, especially because, you know, photography for so many of us, including myself, take it very personally. So when someone doesn't necessarily harshly reject it, but doesn't really accept or really kind of take interest in your photos, it is a bit of a tough one to take. So, but I think, again, much like this kind of ties into the point I made before that we each have our own different ways, it's not necessarily anything personal, it's just the fact of like, not everybody is going to have the same interests as you, and that's absolutely fine, because I do believe as long as you put yourself out there, your body of work will find the right people that are looking for it. The next one is passion feels like work. Now this one, I will admit, kind of ties more into people who do photography for a living. Because like obviously if you're doing it for a living, you have to put so much more of yourself into it, because that's how you put a roof over your head, it's how you feed yourself at night. So I do understand like that comes with a significant amount more pressure to kind of put yourself into it and really put yourself out there. And that can be a lot to handle, especially if you're someone who's making it for photography for a living, because with that you will have clients to deal with. Those clients will have deadlines they need you to meet, and you may be juggling multiple clients at a time. So this is where it puts a lot of pressure on yourself, because obviously as a photographer, you'll be self-employed most of the time and you'll be working for yourself. Now that's great, everybody, I'm sure there's plenty of photographers out there who would love that idea, but obviously the pressure falls on you to meet those deadlines, and you might find the workload gets a bit on top of you. And that's where it's a bit tough to look at, you know, when you look at photography in that sense where your passion becomes your work. You start to feel a bit stressed in those situations when you're getting multiple deadlines and multiple clients on top of you, in the sense that it's like, you know, this thing, this craft of photography that once brought you a lot of joy when maybe you first started doing it just as a small little hobby that you enjoyed to do in your free time, now brings with it a lot of stress. So it's kind of like trying to balance out and trying to find a way to like juggle that pressure of something that you really enjoyed but now brings a lot of stress and a lot of pressure with it. Number 5 is the pressure of competition. This one again sticks to what I said earlier. If you're someone who does photography for a living, it is very competitive. As I'm sure everyone knows, photography is very, very competitive because there are so many people doing it. It's that infamous saying that, you know, everybody and their auntie became a photographer the day they put cameras in phones. So while of course it is very competitive and there's many people out there doing it, it can feel a bit much to compete against that. And that pressure can start to weigh you down, especially if you feel like you're really putting in the work and it's just not getting viewed by the right people. But for me, again, you can take it for what it's worth. Like I said, I don't do photography for a living at the moment, but I do really believe if you put in the grind, you put in the hustle and the work, your photos and your portfolio will get discovered by the right people. So yes, there is a lot of competition and it can feel really hard to get out there and hard to get your name out there to the right people and to find potential clients and suitors. But I do believe if you just stick at it, it will take a lot longer than you think, but I really do believe if you stick at it, you will find the right people and the right people will find your work. Number 6 is self-doubt, and this is a tough one because nobody is going to critique your photos more than you will yourself. We are all our own toughest critic. And what I mean by that is that photos you may have took at one part in your photography journey, one part in your life, you won't look back on them as such admiration years down the line. And part of that will have been down to the fact that as the years have progressed since you took previous photos, your eye for photography and your skill set has improved dramatically. So that means that photos years gone by, you may have thought at the moment were great photos and you really enjoyed them and you really enjoyed taking them. They don't have the same impact anymore because you look back on them and you think, well, yes, it was good at a time, but there's certainly many things I could have done better with it. Now, I don't think that should necessarily serve as a bad thing. I think that should serve as testament and a tribute to how much your photography skill set has improved over the years and how your eye for photography and good composition and lighting, etc. has gotten a lot better. So in that sense, I wouldn't at least use self-doubt, or I wouldn't view self-doubt as too much of a problem there. The issue where self-doubt comes into it is if you are actively taking photos and immediately looking at them and saying to yourself, well, that's not as good as so-and-so's photo, it's not as good as this person or that person, or, you know, my work is just not as good as anybody else's. That, I don't believe, serves you any purpose. Because the fact of the matter is, we should not be comparing ourselves to anyone, ever. Everybody is on their own kind of journey. It is not worth your time comparing yourself to other people. Now, I will admit, there are certain people out there through no fault of your own and nothing you could have done, circumstances completely out of your control. People just have that extra eye for good composition and good photos and editing styles. There's nothing you can do about. So please take into mind, as long as you're enjoying the process, that is the end game. That is the only thing that matters. If that's all you're worried about, if you just concern yourself with just enjoying the process, look, other people will have that slightest more advantage over you. They will be just that, have that better composition, that better eye for taking a better photo. But that is not something you should worry yourself about. Just enjoy your process and take the photos that you want to make. And finally, number 7, creative block is inevitable. This is the ultimate kryptonite of many photographers, including myself. We all go through periods where we have unbelievable highs, where the creative juices are flowing, we're out there, you're taking loads of photos, you're going out there and everything you're touching, you seem to be on such a wave of momentum. But just as much as you can experience massive highs, you'll also experience many lows. And that is where creative block will always set in. You'll always have situations where you're not always going to be massively productive. Which is all the more frustrating, of course, because as photographers, we love to get out there and just take as many photos and just get out there and just create so much work. So when you're just not feeling it, when the creativity is not flowing, it can feel like it's against you. And for many people, actually, creative block ends a lot of photography journeys, and I don't think that's really right. I think that you need to kind of power through it. I always say that anything in life, not just photography, you need to take the good times with the bad times. You need to accept that in the kind of, I don't know if I'm using the phrase yin and yang kind of correctly here, but certainly one cannot exist without the other. You can't expect to be going through such massive periods of creativity and not expect to have the opposite end, where you're going to experience massive kind of periods of kind of block and maybe kind of like self-doubt, like I said earlier before, or periods where you're just not really feeling like you can get out there and make anything. And a way to kind of combat this creative block is to kind of maybe take up learning a new skill set in photography. Like if you're someone who takes a lot of like more kind of like candid shots, maybe try and go for kind of motion blur. If you're someone who does motion blur, try and make more kind of still shots, or maybe just try and create something different. You know, like a great way to break creative block is maybe because, again, you've exhausted, or maybe for temporarily exhausted your kind of methodology, and you need something different. You need something to kind of shake up, or you need to try and add a new feather to your cap, so to speak. There's many ways you can break creative block, but certainly you are always going to be experiencing creative block, but never, best piece of advice I can give you for that is never let it stop you from getting out there and just at least trying taking photos. I've tried so many times to work my way through my creative block and it hasn't always panned out, and that's very frustrating, but still going today, and many people out there are still going, so don't let it stop you. So that is it. Those are my 7 harsh truths about photography. I hope you have found this helpful. But look, the point of this video is not to scare anybody off photography. Look, I do believe that as much as I would implore people to get into it, I do think people obviously look at photography and think, I can get into that, that looks really glamorous and really easy, and it's just all nothing but sunshine and roses. There are challenges to be had, many things that are happening internally within your control, many things that happen out with your control that can be frustrating, challenging, and a real nuisance. But I do hope you found this helpful. Thank you again, as always, so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.